sure some of you guys were on the last webinar where we talked about syndication more broadly. This is a real focus on syndication and SEO. Again, my name is Mike Schreiber. I'm president and founder of MediaFeed, and we produce a ton of editorial content for ourselves and for brands and for content creators, and we help them distribute it through our network. And I've been working with Jeff Gold, my partner in crime here, for several years on a variety of different projects, and he's perfect for this group given his background, not just in SEO, but in the travel space as it pertains to SEO. And I'll hand it off to Jeff now to tell you a little bit about himself, and we can get started.
Yeah, thank you. So nice to meet everybody. My name is Jeff Gold, as mentioned. I'm an SEO consultant, have my own consultancy for the past 5 years, but I did start in-house for working for Marriott. So I'm based in Washington, D.C., here at their international headquarters. I was there for 9 years as their senior SEO strategist. So I do have that context in the travel space in the 2005 to 2012. 13 era. I then went to Living Social. If those that remember the height of the Daily Deal and Groupon on Living Social. So I did that for a few years and then spun out in my own consultancy to do that ever since. So nice to connect with everybody. Do you want to take this, Mike, or here? I'll take this part and I'll take it back to
Why
you.
don't you take this?
Okay, great. So three big things we're going to learn today. One is going to be how syndication helps you in this, brave new world that we are in or entering in. How SEO has changed. I think that context is really, really important, right? To understand kind of where we're at in terms of organic search and why things rank the way they rank, why things may not be ranking where they don't rank the way they once did. And then bringing those two things together, how do we maximize syndication, both for its own purposes, for its own ends, but also to help in this new SEO world that we're in. So the agenda, we'll start off with Mike just kind of recapping what syndication is, what kind of content works best, where your content will be going to, the frequency and kind of the patterns that work best for syndication. Then move into the evolution of SEO. I think there is a lot of slides, there are a lot of content that Ryan mentioned that I want to get through. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it in terms of slide by slide, but I do want to set the stage of kind of where we're at. Move on to the overlap between syndication and SEO, and then just open it up to a discussion at the end of the session. So I'll kick it back to Mike for now.
Sure. Okay, so a lot of this you guys will remember from the last, but so I'll do a quick recap so we can get to the good stuff that Jeff has. And syndication really is based on the development of true editorial content as opposed to sponsored content or branded content or anything that's designed to directly promote the content producer or their products. It's really got to be valuable, unique editorial content. And so syndication and distribution is really just part of a holistic approach to getting that content out there. So syndication in this sense is taking that content, the full article, and handing it off to other sites to republish, in this case, sites like MSN and AOL. But they're always pointing back to your home base, which is your publication. And they do that through a canonical tag, which Jeff will talk about a little bit more, which identifies you as the original publisher, as well as just contextual related links. And this is important because it really is designed to not just help in terms of organic traffic in the SEO sense, but also organic traffic in the truest sense of the world. You're getting this stuff out there. Real people are reading it and real people are clicking over and ideally sharing this resource in any of the number of ways that people share stuff, both digitally and in real life. And so it's really important then that it is editorial versus advertorial because you're up there with other true editorial destinations. And there are a lot of places that you can syndicate content to, as we note here. There are tons of ad aggregators, but beyond just pure syndication, there's distribution through different news feeds, through blogging platforms like Substack and Medium and LinkedIn now. People often adapt content that exists in one form, like a video or a podcast, turn it into an article, then distribute that content with the original media, the original video or the original podcast in that, which is a new way to get at people in new platforms. You don't think of MSN as a podcasting platform or Yahoo as a podcasting platform, but it kind of can be if you do it in the right way. And there's obviously also newsletters and social media and ebooks where you take maybe a ton of content that you've produced over a period of time and turn it in and edit it, select versions and variations of content that you've created for one purpose, and then you syndicate it or you distribute it as a book. It's really just meant to illustrate that there's a lot of things that you can do with this content, but ideally it's all pointing back to this home base where the content lives. And so with that, let me hand it off to Jeff now to get into the evolution of SEO in the age of
The evolution of SEO. Let's dive in.
yeah.
So I think the big takeaway in the SEO world is that things are changing rapidly. I'd say the past 2 to 3 years, organic search and kind of broadly SEO has changed the most it has in my entire 20-year career. I don't think that's too kind of aggressive to say. And yet, it is still the top traffic generator on the open web. There was a 2024 study that looked at the biggest referrers of traffic, who sends outbound traffic to other websites on the internet. At the time of this study, search engines and Google specifically drove more than 60% of that outbound traffic, right? So, YouTube, 4%, social media, under 4%. Now, there's an element of the gated garden there. People keep staying on those platforms, but looking at outbound traffic, it's still search is the answer for referring traffic. And then looking at search engines, Google is, still the 800-pound gorilla in the space. More about 85% of all traffic coming from a search engine, and organic search is coming from Google. At the time of this study, this out of the way, OpenAI was about 0.3%, right? So under 1% coming from ChatGPT and related domains. Very small, obviously growing and coming from nothing, and we're going to keep a close eye on that. But SEO and search engines and Google primarily are still the game to play for earning those free clicks. And then this is relatively unchanged in the past 5 years. The red line basically is Google's market share. In the US, 86%. Now there's a slight slippage that I think Google is concerned about. And for various reasons I'll get into, but down from 88%, so down about 2% in terms of market share. And then globally, it's even bigger. Google is, upwards of 90%, but again, coming down from 92%. So there are cracks in this armor that we're going to get into. And maybe as a cause of that, Google is keeping more of the search activity on its own platforms. Or maybe it's the effect, because Google is keeping more on its own platforms, then people are choosing other things. Either the cause or effect is hard to decipher, but nonetheless, this study is looking at zero-click searches. So how many searches end up not resulting in an outbound click? According to this study at the time, 2024, it was about 58% of searches did not result in a click, right? So only about 4 out of 10 searches were resulting in a click. And it's kind of hard to see here, but the 41% that generate a click, 70% are going to organic search, 30% are staying on a Google property, right? So YouTube, Google Maps, et cetera, something Google owns, about 3 out of 10 of those searches are staying with Google. And then looking at the other side, the 58% that are zero-click searches, 37% of those end in nothing. The user leaves the browser session. If they're searching for what the weather was or what time the game starts, they got their answer on the search results page. The 21%, there's another search. Basically, Google has an incentive right, to keep people on their platforms and ideally to keep them in search. So if you're searching keyword A, they want you to stay there to search keyword B or keyword C. And this is just not my conspiratorial mindset. There's been antitrust cases here in the US against Google's monopoly on search, and a lot of the court documentation has shown their engineers saying, how do we keep people on Google searching more? And one way is to embed links to other search results from search results. So that's happening as well. So if you're taking a look at 100 searches happening, 42 of those would result in a click. And then of those 42, only 29 are going to a website. And then obviously that follows a click-through rate curve where position one is getting some percentage of that, and then position two is fewer, and so on and so on. So, we're playing this game, but the rules of the game are shifting, dramatically. And as I mentioned, Google is facing these threats from seemingly all angles at this point, both from upstart competitors. Obviously, Microsoft Bing released their OpenAI and ChatGPT integration in 2023. The antitrust cases, as I mentioned, that Google has recently lost two of them here in the US, and the remedies will be coming this year. It might be that Chrome gets spun out from Google ownership, or any number of remedies. The bottom left there's kind of a general sentiment amongst consumers that Google search results are getting worse. I'm not sure if you feel that yourself in your daily search habits, but this is really kind of taking hold. I think in the past year, I'd say I've seen a lot of articles talking about this topic. And we're SEO people are kind of put as the bad guy here, like, oh, this is all just SEO, overly optimized, keyword stuffed garbage content, as this article says. But Google is noticing that consumers and journalists are kind of covering this story. And the bottom right there was a big leak from their engineering team last year that revealed a lot of their ranking factors. So that's just kind of general sloppiness, I think. But the point here is that Google is kind of facing these threats from every direction. And so I think as a result of that, this is algorithmic updates over the past 2 years, 3 years. They've been fast and furious. The things highlighted here in red are called core updates. Core updates shake up all search results, or a large percentage of all searches, where things are just kind of dropping and rising, and it's very hard to decipher why that might be, besides Google just saying, okay, we spent 3 months fine-tuning our algorithms using machine learning, and just saying this no longer deserves to rank. Something fresher, something more relevant deserves to kind of take its spot. So this is just kind of a pattern we're seeing of just Google cranking out algorithmic updates pretty frequently. Now, all that to say, to me, search isn't changing from a consumer's behavior, meaning people still have questions. They still want to seek out information. And looking at these, just a handful of travel queries in Google Trends, like they're relatively staying flat or maybe even increasing. People still have this desire to seek out information, and the first place they turn to is Google, right? But as I mentioned before, like this, I'm not picking on this site here, Lonely Planet, but a lot of my clients are looking at traffic graphs like this, where they've dramatically come down over the past few years, and maybe they're clawing back, some gains recently. But it's kind of like, why? What did we do wrong? That kind of thing. And I think it's a part and parcel of everything I just mentioned, right? That more activity staying on Google. Google's algorithmic updates are having dramatic effects, kind of a widespread number of publishers. Google's own properties kind of stealing and cannibalizing a lot of that activity. And then also people starting to look elsewhere at AI as an answer. So let's go back to the basics here, right? We talk about SEO and organic search. You can buy your way onto the search results pages through ads, and these are publisher. You guys are publishers, so I'm not sure if a lot of folks here are engaging in that. Or you're creating content, you're playing the organic game to rank and earn visibility in the organic results, right? Historically, we talked about the 10 blue links. This was kind of the good old days, right? Where you didn't have a ton of competition from ads, from Google's own properties. You just created content, and if you were in the 10 blue links, you were going to get traffic, right? And it was really hard for me to find just a search results page that honestly has just 10 blue links. It's pretty, even here, we're seeing people also ask, which goes to other searches, as I mentioned. But this is pretty rare, right? And so what do we see now? We see over 100 different, we call SERP features. So it's AI overviews, which is the new kid on the block. But people also ask, forums, Reddit is getting this kind of artificial boost amongst so many information seeking queries where Google decided and through a partnership with Reddit, like we're just going to put you at the top basically for any kind of deep question, that people are turning to Google for. So they're kind of turning over their responsibility as a search engine to Reddit. But also something called perspectives or kind of this first point of view through social media, TikTok channels, et cetera. And so, depending on what's showing up for any given query, these are all kind of stealing from the 10 blue links that I mentioned, right? So, this is looking at a click-through rate curve. So basically, how much click-through rate you would expect from position one, position two, position three. For the most part, this kind of curve has existed from, search engines to the beginning of time here. You can go to that link if you want to play with how that changes based on what SERP features are present. So if images are there, or people also ask, or whatever it might be, this tool will tell you both the frequency of those SERP features, but also what click-through rate you would expect from position one, two, and three, and so on. So yeah, this is kind of greatly impacted, I'd say, by what is present on the search results page. And then just in the past 2 days, we're now starting to see these studies come out about the effect of AI overviews on click-through rate, and it's not good. Is the story, the takeaway. So this is just from a few days ago from two different tools. The first one is showing a 34% drop in position one, the second one a 15%. Either way, it's saying if an AI overview is present on top of the search results, even if you're ranking position one, you would expect to see a decline in your traffic. So that is not great, but also none of this stuff is set in stone, right? Google is still experimenting with AI overviews, when it shows up, what it looks like, how many links are included, how those links are displayed. Do they have thumbnails? Are they underlined, expandable, collapsible boxes, etc. And also, I think like it's hard for me as an SEO consultant to say like do this, do this, do this, because kind of the sand is shifting under our feet here, right? And so maybe the future is that we're going to have less traffic coming from organic search, but we want to play the impression and visibility game. We want to be included in the AI overview. We want to be included in the ChatGPT output. Like maybe it's more of a branding and impression game. We'll see, but it's still kind of uncertain at this time. So I'll touch on these algorithmic updates. I'll go through just very briefly what these are over the past decade and the implications for you as content creators. The number one thing I think is, well, this is one of them, and I'll get to the second most important one. But I'm sure you've seen the acronym EAT, EAT, which stands for expertise, authority, and trust. Basically, Google has these questions that they want you to ask yourself. Are you an expert? Are you providing comprehensive information? Would you trust it yourself? Are you earning references and citations from the broader internet? Just including links, but also just like, are people mentioning your brand? If you have data, are you talking about how you acquire that data, your methodology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So this is not a ranking factor per se, but Google has what they call their quality raters, which is like a panel of people that review search results and then grade them based on these kind of questions. And then they take the output of that and then apply it to search results. So they use kind of machine learning to say, it looks like people are grading these kind of results within, an A plus and a B and a C, and then applying that, kind of scaling that up and applying it across their entire search index. So this concept, I think, is really, really important to ask yourself. And then in 2022, they added another E to make it, more confusing, which is experience. So this is to say, do you have firsthand experience with what you're writing about? I think in an attempt to get at kind of low quality affiliate content where people, are reviewing a product that they didn't themselves use or kind of don't have an expertise talking about, right? In 2019, Google released something called BERT. The big takeaway here is natural language understanding. So if in the past this query, 2019 Brazil traveler to USA need a visa, that was a long query they didn't quite understand. They would look for maybe documents with the keywords US, Brazil, travel, visa, but not understand the travelers coming from Brazil to the USA. And so this technology basically would read the query as a sentence in its entirety and then understand the meaning, the semantic meaning, both forward and backwards. And so what does that mean for content creators? We can write much more naturally. We don't have to kind of keyword stuff, and we can, assume that Google's going to figure out what we're talking about and understand our natural language to rank the right document, rather than kind of keyword matching at a very simplistic level. 2021, Google roll out MUM. The big takeaway here is this multitask model is looking across languages, but also multimedia. So kind of translating these long queries, looking at images and image, object detection as well. So looking at multimedia intent is a big thing for content creators. And then the big one here is the helpful content update. I would say this one in 2022 has been kind of the predominant cause of a lot of these really, ugly graphs, traffic graphs going down. Basically, what I consider this is an SEO penalty, in the sense that if you're creating content just for Google, quote unquote, based on keywords, only written basically for a keyword targeting purpose, and therefore it is not helpful, and therefore it will be dinged, and the domain itself would suffer, right? And a part of me understands this. This gets at this consumer mindset that results are getting worse, that it's too SEO-y, and that we want to get back to our roots, ranking that hidden gem, that blogger that has firsthand knowledge and kind of surfacing them. But a part of me thinks this is entirely garbage. And I say that because they are now saying, like, don't look at keyword data. Don't do things for us at all. If you are creating content based on, this keyword is getting searched 100 times a month, that is now unhelpful. When if you go back in time, just 5 or 10 years, Google was saying, look at Google Trends, look at Keyword Planner, look at that data to create content to help searchers. And now they're saying if like pay no attention to us, right? But if you pay attention to them and pay attention to what people are Googling, they now kind of slap a label on you as unhelpful. So it's kind of talking at both sides of their mouth. And to me, it just seems overly aggressive to say, like, don't look at keyword data whatsoever, when that was something they were recommending, a short time ago. So that's a big change. And obviously the generative AI in search, Microsoft revealing their Bing partnership in 2023, and now Google AI overviews starting to creep into a majority of search results pages. So all this to say, there's a lot going on, and that might be explaining, what's happening to any given site's traffic patterns. So this is an overly simplistic graph, but if you go from the bottom up, basically legacy ineffective SEO, like this never really worked, but my clients, a decade ago, it would be, let's write the content and then give it to the SEO person and say, like, what are the keywords? Let's kind of sprinkle them on top. That really never worked, but that I'll remember that time period. Going up from there, we move to this mindset of let's look at keyword data. Let's say see what our consumers or our prospective consumers are searching, and then create content based around that, and then go to blog post ideas, creating content outlines, etc. Now the top one here, Google's saying, start with your unique perspective. Why you? Why should you rank over another site? What is your unique data, your unique perspective, your unique insights? Then I still think the keyword data comes into play. Like, you can't just ignore it. And so I think you would take your expertise, but then kind of look at keyword data and combine the two, mold it a little bit to fit what people are searching. Because again, I just don't, if you're not looking at it whatsoever, then how are you going to know what kinds of search results you want to be on, and how are you going to measure this stuff? So I would still look at it, but you're starting from a different perspective. Then I would go to the SERP itself. What SERP features are present? Are images or videos or TikTok channels or whatever being overly promoted on that SERP? And if one of those is, then like your 1,000-word blog post may not crack that top 10. So it depends what the intent is that Google understands the keyword to be, and then how do you create content to match that intent. All right, so moving on to that's SEO, the past 10 years or more. Now we're looking at syndication. So I worked with Mike on a client, a language learning company and tool a few years ago, or maybe last year and a half ago, to syndicate their editorial content through the syndication platform. This is looking just at MSN and the number of impressions that they earned just for a handful of stories here, right? So some of these went pretty viral or kind of took off and made it to the MSN homepage, et cetera. And so again, if we're talking about, like, forget SEO for now, just from an impression and branding standpoint, these are kind of how many eyeballs saw their content. From a organic traffic, not organic search, but just people reading that story on MSN or a syndication partner and then clicking on links, that generated traffic in itself as well. So just in its own, for its own purposes here, it was super helpful to get, brand awareness, to earn impressions, and to earn traffic from these syndication partners. Then moving on to SEO. So it did help SEO. It helped from a few different standpoints. One is to earn links. So the canonicals, but also the links in the body of the content got picked up. And so these were kind of credited as linking domains, linking websites, which ultimately rank or help us rank better for SEO keywords. So looking across all the stories that we syndicated from a 6-month period before and after, in total, we generated over 700 new linking root domains, and then over 13,000 SEO visits incrementally. So again, it helped on MSN and the platforms themselves, but also helped downstream from an SEO standpoint. And now I'm taking a look at AI overviews, looking at generative AI search results like Perplexity, looking at those kind of keywords. If consumers are starting to shift their patterns and don't start with Google, but go directly to GPT or Perplexity. I just want to see our visibility, and now I'm seeing us there. Point is that I think our SEO and the fact that we earn impressions or probably included in AI training data sets helped us earn visibility now in these downstream platforms. So yeah, so I think in this new world where we're going to, again, I don't know how much traffic is going to come from these, if the impression itself is kind of worth it. But I think there's no doubt it's earning us visibility in these AI outputs. And so just a few quick tips, right? So as Mike mentioned, the number one thing is to make sure you're canonically to yourself, right? So this is the MSN story got picked up in search results, but if you don't include that canonical, there's no way for a search engine or now maybe an AI tool, if they honor the canonical link, to know who created it. So always include a canonical. That's kind of the SEO basics, but that's where I would start. And then include links. So in this case, this was an in-body link. As I mentioned, gets picked up by the syndication partners, any sites that have deals with them or maybe scrape them. It just kind of ripples throughout the internet, and those links get picked up as well. A few other tips here, and I'll get to the questions. This is very simplistic, but just start to measure how much traffic you're getting from generative AI engines. So this is a GA4 filter, pretty simple. Just looking for any source medium containing GPT, Perplexity, you name it. These are not stats from that same tool, but just to show you that you can look at this, you can see referral traffic, and then obviously if you have GA4 set up properly, see what happens on your site from those sources. And then last but not least is if you want to understand the impact of AI overviews on your own site, you can use a tool like Ahrefs. You can look at SERP features contain that little star is the AI overview icon. You could say, show me where I'm ranking, where AI overviews are being displayed. and then see what keywords those are. In this case, we're seeing, best beaches in Italy generates an AI overview, cheap tropical vacations, etc. And then you can do a before after analysis. So you can see like when did AI overviews come online, which is earlier this year. Maybe go back last year, see how much traffic you got and impressions you got from those keywords through Search Console. Look at it now and start to kind of model out, okay, I should expect to see a 10% drop or whatever it might be, or maybe a lift if you're included in the overview itself. So I would advise you to do that. And that's all I have. Let me pull up.
Pretty cool stuff, Jeff. Thank you. I mean, you've got an audience here full of people who have just been rocked by Google Core updates over the past 2 years,
Yeah.
like travel creators, travel bloggers, just at the mercy of kind of whatever's going on at Google. So it's interesting to see you touch on kind of the return of, prioritizing your authentic voice. Is there anything else that you can share? Like, is there any kind of forecasting or trends in that category that you'd like to let these people know today, to help them out, like to help them stay agile in
I
that
wish
regard?
that I wish that I could. Like I said, everything is changing seemingly daily, monthly here. And so I know a lot of sites that like I got rocked last year. It hasn't come back. I haven't seen a ton of case studies that say we did this, this, and this, and we turned that graph all the way back.
Mm,
It just could be we're entering this brave new world where traffic will be lower, impressions will be higher. It might be supplemented by referrals from AI in time, but I wish I had a better answer than just model out where you're at today. Try to find maybe sites in your vertical or that have had a success story and see what they've done. But I haven't seen a ton in my world, to be quite honest. So it's a very, pessimistic, kind of gloomy answer,
mm,
um, but I do think kind of skating to where the puck is going, right? So if I think for me, the jury is out. How much traffic should we expect to get from ChatGPT? Like, is this going to go from 0% to 10, 20, 30% of my traffic? Or will people just be inclined to stay on GPT and just be another zero-click search? I've seen a lot of stories recently about like we're entering the zero-click world. And how do we measure brand impressions and that kind of thing? So I think maybe that's a part of this story, but the story is still being written, to be quite honest.
mm,
Yeah, yeah, and I just one thing to add, and Jeff and I talked about this last week when we were prepping for this, and it like occurred to me, and the jury's still out on this, by the way, like everything, but it occurred to me that like if you just think through how this is working now, obviously more people are going to be using these LLMs, whether it's ChatGPT or something else, and getting their answers, and a larger percentage of those people will be satisfied with that answer and not have to click, which means traffic will go down. But for the people that do click and find the source of the answer, that look at in the source box, the presumption is that their intent will be higher, meaning like if they've read the answer, but like, okay, they decide, I need more granular information about this. I want to understand make sure that this answer is correct, that the LLM didn't get it wrong, or B, I just want more information about this subject, then it serves to reason that their intent will be higher. So less traffic, but higher intent would be my prediction. Now, how that all shakes out, let's talk in a little while, I suppose. But that's one thing. And then the other thing that I'm always aware of is that so many of these LLMs are licensing content to build their models, and that is another monetization route for really good content creators, for people who are creating really unique content. And typically those are big deals, like Microsoft does a big deal with the Wall Street Journal. But I have to imagine as these models get better, they will be doing deals with people who are potentially smaller but have more niche expertise. So just a couple things to think about.
And I think that goes back to the expertise topic, right? So like if you're creating unique content, basically like consider the LLM is going to create the lowest quality version of the answer, right? The most basic, I'll say. And so we no longer have to write those SEO articles that answer things in a basic way. We can move on to better things. We can move on to more exciting things, right? And so I think what Google's looking for is reward this unique perspectives and unique kinds of content. And then LLMs are kind of also pushing us that way because they're taking care of the kind of lowest rung of the basic level of the content. So but yeah, the story's still being written. But I don't know if there's a question about canonical links in here. I saw that. I think it was answered. But basically, it's just in the source code, it tells Google and other search engines who the originator of a piece of content is. So yes, it should like your syndicated URL should now outrank your original canonical version of it. And then the question, how do you get content included in the AI overview? That's changing. At one point, the overlap between the top 10 results and what was included in the AI overview was very different. That seems to be coming together. So basically, it's the SEO game that we've been playing for 20 years. If you rank well in the top 10, you should be one of the sources cited and mentioned in the AI overview, which is also creating redundancies. And a lot of people, a lot of consumers are saying like, I hate the AI overview because I just skip it. Or now there are Chrome extensions where people can add to remove it because they just want to get to like, hey, I'm searching, which means I want to actually click on something and leave Google, not stay here. And so, but yeah, the answer to the question is should just SEO is the answer, right? Try to rank in the top 10 and you'll have a better shot at ranking in the overview.
So I think I'll just kind of comb through the questions as well, because we've got the chat and the Q&A. Uh, how can you get syndicated by sites like MSN? How do you get your content included in the AI overview from Lauren?
Yeah, Mike, you want to take the syndication question?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, I can handle the syndication question. It used to be relatively easy to get on MSN and in particular, they kind of opened it up to everybody to apply through a program that was then called MSN Start that doesn't exist anymore. And now they've closed that off. There are, we still MediaFeed helps a variety of brands get on. There is an approvals process like anything. You've got to be producing really good content, really solid editorial content that is likely to do well. If you're interested in that, reach out to me and we can have a frank conversation about what expectations should be about getting on that or any other platform for that matter, because aggregators like there are other aggregators like Yahoo and AOL and Newsbreak and the rules are different for all of them, and it's not simple. And in order to make it really worth your while, you've got to be producing enough content and the right kind of content. But in some cases, there's a rev share that you can qualify for, and so some people really do put significant resources behind it. It's not always if you're a one-man band and producing an article a week, it might not be the right thing. But if you're doing considerably more than that, then it could work for you. Beyond that, MediaFeed does have a free contributor network where we'll like maybe take an article a month, and it's essentially like content sharing. So if you're interested in that, also, you can reach out to me. So we have an approval process for that too. But yeah, there's not a simple answer to that because it's basically business development and there are a few different routes there. But I'm happy to share in a one-on-one call.
I suppose, thanks, Michael. Similar answer, but over to the Q&A. Do you have a recommended list of which news sites have syndication?
I mean, a lot of the ones are big legacy sites that you've seen before. Like MSN is great because it's not just the website, but it's built into every Microsoft device. Like you'll see content in every laptop or Surface tablet. Like when you click the start button, content that is matched to your interests and location pops up. But then there's obviously Yahoo, there's AOL, there's newer ones like Newsbreak and Smart News. I don't have there was a slide earlier that had a bunch of them on there. That was a pretty good representation of them.
Yona asks, I love syndicating to MSN. What other platforms are relatively easy to get accepted on? I suppose just answered that one.
Yeah, nothing's easy, unfortunately.
If my syndicated content outranks the canonical version, what does that mean?
It could, well, Jeff, you might have a better answer to this, but in my experience, it's either temporary, like maybe like it because MSN gets crawled more often, it initially outranked, and then your stuff ranked better. But it could also be any other. It's not like a panacea. There's all sorts of technical SEO considerations that go into what's ranking for what. But I'll hand it off to Jeff.
Yeah, I think the short answer is probably something not has gone wrong, but it shouldn't. If it is, then to your point, Mike, maybe Google found the MSN article first. Now, that shouldn't matter because it would still find the canonical. But so let's say that your article is kind of buried in your site architecture, like it's hard to get to. So one way to remedy that is to include links, on your homepage or somewhere more prominent, to submit it to Google Search Console or through Google Search Console as quickly as possible, just to make sure that nothing goes awry, right? Basically, like it shouldn't be the case, but it could be that Google found it first and has it just gotten around to honoring the canonical. The canonical is kind of like it is a strong signal, a strong recommendation, but it's not a directive in the sense that Google has to like legally follow it or like honor it. It could be that the MSN or the syndicated URL is being linked to from really prominent places on the internet and yours isn't. And so it's saying, oh, this one is more authoritative and therefore I'm going to rank it better. But again, it should be short-lived because it should find the canonical and it should honor it. But, shoulds are not musts. And so sometimes like just Google doesn't want to cooperate. The best you can do is build more links to yours, put it higher up in your architecture and your site, more prominent links. Like I said, Search Console. And then if it becomes a problem, then maybe remove it from syndication. I don't know if you ever do that, Mike, but or just say like, okay, well, is this bad? Like ideally it doesn't happen, but maybe we're getting traffic from MSN to our site. Take a look at that. But it should be short-lived and it shouldn't happen, but I know it does. And so sometimes it's a matter of just waiting a bit.
Thanks, Jeff. So with that, I put a last call out in the chat there, and nothing else has come in. So I'll just take a minute to thank you both very much. Very informative. Thanks for bringing all that detail and the history and the data, Jeff. Really cool. And ultimately, like, I mean, it's a room full of creators. I find that there's always an element of frustration with this back end side. For a lot of Stay22 partners, but there is hope because a key point from today was the fact that, authentic content will win, and so I'm happy to leave attendees with that little bit of hope, although there's always frustrations along the way. So thank you for reassuring us all of that, to keep going and keep creating and keep expressing our unique voices.